What is up, everybody? Facebook Live, Noel Walsh coming at you tonight, January 16th, 2018, with a very special guest, Ali Reda from Les Stanford Chevrolet and Cadillac in Dearborn, Michigan. And if you don't know it already, I'm sure you do, but Ali set the world record for most automobiles sold in 1 year. Ali sold 1,582 vehicles in 1 year. Now, when Ali has a slow month for Ali is 90 or 100. And if you meet Ali is one of the most humble, grateful people I've ever had a conversation with, especially a man of his merits and a man of his accomplishments. And so we've got a lot of great questions that I got from different social media platforms. Actually, most of them came from LinkedIn, but we got a lot of good ones also from here on Facebook, from my page, Conquer What You Chase Sales Pros, and from some other places. But Ali, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Man, hello Facebook, hello everybody. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate you, Noel. This has been pretty cool, so I appreciate you having me on here. Yeah, like you said, man, I'm selling Chevy and Cadillac in Dearborn, Michigan. I've been at this store here for about 7 years now, but I've been in the business for 17 years, and it's always been Chevy. And when I joined Les Stanford, we added Cadillac to that. So, yeah.
Excellent. So 17 years. And so now I saw that your first month you did 19 vehicles, which is
yeah.
And
first month in the business, man, that was back in 2001. It was a pretty busy time. A lot of it was, of course, just starting out in the business, and the 19 that month.
Yeah. And now, what month did you start in 2001?
I want to say it was either May or June.
Okay. And if you remember, because I started in November of 2000, and if you remember, we had 9/11 in September of 2001. Yeah. And after that is basically when big rebates came out and 0%, like all that was unheard of. Maybe you could get 0% for 24 months. And I remember that we were so busy after that because all those incentives and all those programs came out. But then it dried up. So when I tell people about my longevity in the business, I'm like, I dealt with 911. I dealt with the tsunami. If you remember the tsunami, when you couldn't get different, paint colors, you couldn't get moon roofs, you couldn't get navigation, and and the imports were really hurting because they couldn't even get new vehicles. And so I dealt with cash for clunkers. I
was there.
Yep. Yeah. So we went through all those, and those were all exciting. And, and you had those highs, like cash for clunkers was great. But a couple months after that, you were slow because you took out all that business, from the months before. And it was a little slow leading up to that because everybody wanted to wait because they wanted to wait to get the good deals for the cash for clunkers. So you've definitely been in the business. You've gone through the ups and downs. And a couple people here, Hermilo, glad to have you. Mike Columbus, glad to have you. Angela Walker, glad to have you. But I've got a handful of questions here, and so first off, I want to ask. I want to focus on your feat and on your accomplishment, and really when you were going through the year. When did it really kind of sink in, and when did you really kind of realize, like, hey, I can do this? Like, I can beat this record. I can accomplish this. Maybe turn off
your phone. On this one, sorry, I lost you there, bud. I think I lost connection.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, it froze up for a second, but I don't know if you heard my question, but when was it exactly that you realized that you could accomplish that feat, that you could break that record?
I didn't, man, we had such a good start to 2017. And that month in January, I did 167, and that kind of set the tone for the whole year. I carried that on pretty much. February was up in the hundreds. and, March, and it kind of kept carrying on. And somewhere around I want to say around June or July, I started seeing these numbers just kept going up. And then I felt like I had a really good chance at hitting that number. And, that wasn't my main goal. It was in the back of my mind for sure. The year before I did 1,300, so I was close to it. But, somewhere around the summertime, I realized that I had a really good chance of getting there.
And did that help you gear things up? You take things to the next level, or did you just kind of keep going at your pace and your process?
Yeah, I was pretty much kind of still going at my pace, but I think it did make me a little more focused. I think I knew that was there, and I wanted to stay focused. And when you're having a good year, the momentum is huge, and you want to kind of keep the momentum going. And kind of like that ace pitcher nobody wants to sit next to, where you just kind of you're in the zone and you're just doing your thing. And it felt like that pretty much the whole year. We were just positive the whole year, and so blessed to have finished the way we did.
And so now we had a conversation. We had a lengthy conversation about a week and a half ago, and then we had a short conversation yesterday just to kind of firm this live stream up.
Yeah.
Now tell us about your support staff.
Oh man, I got the best support staff ever, man. I got two people that work with me. I got Myrna, she's my assistant. I tell everybody she's the brains behind operation, and she's wonderful, man. She does everything. She's the admin. She does all the paperwork. She handles all the, filters phone calls and everything that needs to be handled behind the scenes. And, so she's actually helped take me to the next level. And Sam, who I call my young legs, and in the car business, man, you can't run around the parking lot like you used to when you were in your 20s. And, I'm 44 this year, so that's been kind of tough, running around the parking lot, grabbing a car, parking a car, license plates. So he kind of does all that stuff for me. And, he's bought me years. He's bought me years in the business and not leaving as tired and not, physically or mentally. So that's been pretty cool. Now, neither of them sell. They're both, administration basically, but I'm the only one that's selling. But they take a lot off my plate to help take us to the next level. And they're a big part of it. I mean, they're a huge part of that.
No, and like you said, you've got the admin, and then you kind of have the leg guy, right? So you can just focus on what you do best, which is still amazing. I mean, you outsold more than most franchise dealerships sell for vehicles. And now, what would you say your new to used mix is?
Mostly new. I don't do a lot of used. They do take a little bit more time, landing on the car and all that. So I still have my share of used, but I kind of hooked up with the used car guy. I let him, take him around, find the right car, and then you bring him back in, and I'll finalize the deal. And usually kind of give it to that salesperson, at that point. But I still want to take care of that customer, but mostly I would say I didn't do that many used at all. It's mostly all new.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I think I told you this, and I was able to have a sit down lunch with Joe Girard in the interview March of last year, and I think I told you this. And he didn't sell any used vehicles because his philosophy was that he wanted to make sure he sold them something with a full warranty and that his shop could service it. So if they had a problem, that he could just say, hey, come on into my service shop. We'll get you handled. We'll get you taken care of. And I mean, you could do that obviously on a lot of vehicles, but if you're selling a used Ford, they might have to outsource that, even if it's under a Ford dealership. And so he'd like to be on top of it. But yeah, I started out in my career in used, and my dad was a used car guy. That was his favorite. He was up to GM level. But once I got a taste of that new, I'm like, I just like new so much better because you were always the hero, right? Like on used, used, you're thinking chargeback and this and that. And on new, you're always the hero. You're like, what, bring it in. I'll get it in the shop. I'll put you in a loaner, and everybody loved you. To where on used, you're like, oh, good grief, it's a 100,000-mile vehicle, and they're complaining about something, trivial. And
there's a lot more that goes to it.
Yeah, there is, and some people love the used, and some people say that you can't make money on new, but ultimately, I enjoyed the new. Now, what would you say leasing is? What's your percentage of leasing?
Leasing, we're in a pretty heavy leasing market, so bigger, higher percentage is leasing. Good thing about leasing is your repeat and your repeat business comes back every 2-3 years. So if you're taking care of these customers, man, you got a high percentage of people coming back. But yeah, we do a high percentage of leases here.
No, absolutely, and I train and teach a lot about leasing because there's so many benefits to leasing that. They fall in love with your product. They fall in love with the salesperson. They fall in love with the dealership and the service department.
Right.
And then they feel more committed because it's almost like they feel like they're sharing that vehicle with you and GM and themselves.
Right.
Right. So, because they would always call me and they'll be like, no, let's doing this. What do I do? And, kind of like it was our vehicle and it was a joint venture. And so many states and so many areas, so many regions are afraid of leasing or they think it's complicated. I'm like, it's no more complicated than a purchase.
Yeah,
and the loyalty levels, skyrocket. And so I think that's amazing. Now, one question I had here from somebody, let me find it because there are quite a few here, is did you read any of Joe Girard's books that helped you break the record or helped you in your career?
Yeah, I'm a fan of his, man. I'm a fan of his values, the way he did business, and reading a couple of his books. I can't remember the name of the one book, but I kind of really love that book. Yeah, that's the one actually. Yep. That's the one. And in that book, I felt like I was reading a story about myself. I mean, there were so many similarities of the way he was doing business. And, you think about what he did in 1973, talking about relationship business and, building relationships with people all over the place. I mean, selling to people that knew him, not so much to who he knew. Those are big deals, and he got himself out there early. He let everybody know what he did. And that's kind of how he built his business. And it was all repeat referrals, relationship based stuff. And, as I'm reading that book, I'm like, wow, man, a lot of these are the same things that I do, and, just getting yourself out in your community and doing all the important things to let people know what you do.
No, absolutely. Now from that point, what is it exactly? What kind of things? In fact, that was a question here. In fact, let me find it. What activities outside of customer interactions have been the biggest impact on your success?
Being active in your community. I mean, that's it. That is the biggest thing I can tell everybody. That's the biggest deal. So, advertising yourself and building your brand name and letting people know what you do is what's going to kind of excel you above everybody else. And I'm out there. I mean, you can't just expect to advertise somewhere and expect people to come in. I mean, you physically got to be present where you advertise. So if I put up a billboard at a community center, I frequent that community center. Or if I put business cards at a restaurant, I always go to that restaurant. I mean, there's a difference between just advertising and throwing things and hopefully it sticks, than letting people see your face and touch you and see you and talk to you. Those are the type of things that are going to, help you succeed.
Yeah, no, and that's something that I always say is, be seen, be known, be there. That
right.
you have to get out, and I think that's one thing that social media is great. It's really gotten me a lot of exposure and got me out to a lot more people than I could have ever gotten out to.
Right.
But ultimately, it's that face to face, hand to hand, meetings to where you're in people's presence and they really see you, and they see you with your kids, and they see you with your wife, and they're like, wow, I've heard he's a great salesman. He's a good dad too. And
right. Yeah, exactly. And you're real, you're real to them. They can see you on a billboard and never ever see you. They don't feel like that person's real. So
right.
That's what you want to kind of get across, that, yeah, you're a dad, you're a brother, you're a son, and you're just like them. You're a friend. That's what you want to get across.
No, absolutely. Now, I think I was going through, I was trying to find some pictures to promote the live stream. And did you get to throw out a first pitch for a Tigers game?
Yeah, man, that was so cool. That was a couple years ago. I think maybe last year. or a year before actually, when I finished number one for